Epilogue, L'espoir fait vivre. Hope makes us live, Haitian proverb. While I worked in Haiti, I learned the limitations of American medicine and technology. The problems that initially seemed so easy to solve became infinitely complex the better I understood them. There were no simple solutions. While access to contraception is important, it in itself will not decrease birth rates. Starvation cannot be eradicated by importing free food. A country's economic status is a more important determinant of health care than the number of doctors or hospitals. American health care is exceptional because the people are industrialized, prosperous, and literate, a situation that did not occur overnight. In previous generations, women died in childbirth, and tuberculosis was the leading killer. Many projects that aimed at improving health care were realistic. Most are centered in Port-au-Prince, but one can visit obscure places in Haiti and find a dedicated missionary dispensing vitamins and antibiotics. Hospitals have been established, the most famous being Albert Schweitzer Hospital in central Haiti. Serving a population of 250,000, it addresses basic health care needs. Education is given in nutrition and hygiene. Immunization and anti-tuberculosis programs have been implemented. I had the opportunity to speak with its director, and he told me that he deliberately discouraged American physicians who want to perform complicated surgical procedures. It is like putting a Picasso in a house without a roof. On the other hand, I saw organizations that imported American technology at high cost and low yield. Visiting surgeons performed corneal transplants that opacified and skin grafts that sloughed off because the patients did not receive careful post-operative care. They transported patients to the United States for sophisticated surgical treatment while ignoring the patient's long-term economic needs. While they were motivated by the best of intentions, they were not changing anything. I concluded that the best medical care that we can give is vaccinations, birth control, oral rehydration, and malaria eradication. The best people to provide health care to the Haitians are the Haitians themselves. At least 50 new physicians graduate annually from the university hospital. Many are genuinely concerned about the plight of their people, but their idealism is blunted by a harsh economic reality. One cannot make a living serving people who cannot pay. They are required to spend a year of medical service helping the poor, but too often it is an exercise in futility. The clinics are located in rural areas without a phone, shower, or social life. They are poorly stocked, and the available medicines are often expired. Electric power for refrigerators stops intermittently, spoiling the vaccines. No diagnostic equipment is available, and many patients just want a meal. After training, these young physicians are unable to find good-paying jobs. The market to provide care for the elite few who can pay is completely saturated. The obvious solution is to get out of the country, and that is exactly what they do. I once was invited to a party by Haitian medical students who were celebrating passing the examination that qualified them for a residency in the United States. If they obtained one, they would learn how to use CAT scans, Swan-Ganz catheters, fetal monitors, and respirators. They would not become proficient at diagnosing malaria and parasitic infections, let alone handling kwashiorkor and tuberculosis. Those who wanted to return and serve the poor would be inadequately trained. More important, they would realize they could have a better life in the United States, political freedom, economic opportunity, and reliable utilities, and opt to stay. This brain drain happens not only in the medical field, but in other professions too. Haiti does have a large and talented middle class, but it's in New York and Miami. There were attempts to help Haiti in other areas besides healthcare. Over 100 private organizations, from missionaries to independent altruists, have projects. Just about everything conceivable is being done. Schools and orphanages have been built. There are programs that teach farming, fishing, reforestation, and beekeeping, a veritable gallery of development projects. I even saw one group import 4 water buffaloes at the cost of $10,000 each to harvest rice. Each organization will rattle off statistics, how many starving children they have fed, how many farmers they have trained, and how many children they have educated. But even though millions of dollars have been spent, Haiti has not improved. More are starving than ever. The poor are willing to sell all their possessions in a desperate attempt to leave the country. Haiti is a land of defunct projects. Everybody is helping, but little is being accomplished. There is no coordination, no communication. Each group is in its own little act. Sounds like churches today. In spite of the odds, though, everyone from the fundamentalist missionaries to the Peace Corps volunteers was genuinely trying to help, but many were frustrated too. They only saw the Haitians becoming more dependent. Those who have worked in Haiti for over a year developed a hopeless cynicism. They all had the same burnt-out look on their faces, and many became alcoholics. They were banging their heads against the wall, so to speak, because they could not change the underlying problems of injustice and inequality. These people, like myself, had unrealistic expectations. Most Americans believe that all problems have quick solutions. When we work in a country like Haiti and discover otherwise, we are surprised, then cynical. As one Haitian merchant pointed out to me while I was obnoxiously demanding a tire for my moped, "You want everything vite, 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 fast, fast, fast." Haiti does not work like that. Haiti does not want outside experts to tell it what to do. Haitians are intensely proud people, and everyone from the starving peasants to the wealthy elite knew that Haiti is the only country to successfully overthrow slavery. The typical Haitian would rather starve than have a foreign government dictate their policies, especially if the people in that country's government were white. Anyone who wants to help Haiti must understand this. Bashing Haiti for its inability to establish representative government is counterproductive. Americans tend to forget that our democratic structure required 200 years to develop in the United States and was a product of over 500 years of struggle from feudal monarchy in England. To expect a similar structure to develop in Haiti in a matter of years, even generations, is unrealistic. Unlike other Caribbean countries that had ties with colonial powers, Haiti remained persona non grata, hindering its progress. Nonetheless, no major improvements will come to Haiti until a political system is developed that allows people to prosper from the fruits of their labor. Although the fall of Duvalier is an important first step, the economic structure that permits the elite to parasite from the work of the peasants still exists. Perhaps a democratic structure is on the horizon, but it is unlikely to change the vast inequities that exist in Haiti quickly. Just as the babies I treated for Kwashiorkor did not improve overnight, we cannot expect rapid progress in Haiti. With an illiteracy rate of 80%, Haiti lacks the backbone of any healthy democracy and educated populace. The United States needs to patiently encourage representative government in Haiti without embarrassing its leaders by constantly subjecting them to the white glove test. A mini Marshall Plan needs to be instituted to coordinate the variety of projects trying to help Haiti. Most important, Haiti needs the political and economic climate to encourage the return of those who can truly build Haiti, the expatriated middle class. Haitians need to be able to travel freely between the United States and Haiti without fear of political reprisals. Haitians working in the United States should not be subject to extortion when they try to send money they have earned back to their poor families in Haiti. It is a crime to see the Haitians in such a state. They are warm, wonderful people, except when in dire straits they are friendly and upbeat. They harbor little prejudice and will not physically attack foreigners. I have walked through the poorest slums of Port-au-Prince without fear. Sometimes I even welcomed aggressiveness like that of the taxi driver who tried to overcharge me. Never was anything stolen from me, and once when I dropped a $10 bill while pulling out my stethoscope, an emaciated old lady wearing a black dress that most people would not use for a rag returned it to me. Haitians are truly the salt of the earth, and I will always consider it my privilege to have served them. And that's the end. And he makes many very good observations in this. And this is all obviously based on the time. I think it said it was 91 that this was written. So he's basing it on that. A lot of this stuff, some of it has changed. In general, not a lot has changed in the major problems. Some of the problems have even gotten worse. Being that he's Catholic, but I don't think he's like devout Catholic, so a lot of his is more, this is all more from a secular, I feel, viewpoint. So his conclusions, some of them are really valid, but he's also leaving God out of the equation, and the fact that these people have problem because people are dishonest, people are want power, people want to take advantage of others, and this is run by money, it's run by pride. I mean, you could say they're proud people, but then you go, well, should they be proud people? Should they? There's just a lot wrong here, and it didn't say it particularly in this book, but there was another book I was reading just pointing out that the average IQ in the country was quite a bit lower than in other countries, and that's not to say something negative, except to say that it's relevant. It's relevant, and these people, it's just a huge mess, and it's not getting better. There's corruption in the government, still quite a lot of corruption, and the recent assassination of the leader then. All the leaders there haven't been any that seem to really have had the people's interest at heart. I think there was one, I forget his name. We get a lot of our information from our Haitian missionaries down there who tell us the inside things going on. But there's always unrest. I wouldn't say, this guy's experience was that they were all really nice people and he wasn't afraid. Well, there's a lot of violence there too. It just depends where you are, who you are. That just goes without saying, I guess. So, but I really appreciated his look at the problems, and honestly looking at the problems for what they were, not trying to manipulate it into something else. And one of the biggest points was when he came to the part where he said, I'm fixing people who I'm just throwing back into society there, and am I responsible for their future? And so he had to make these decisions about what am I doing by saving some of these babies and such, when they're just going to suffer even more greatly. And I think, although that doesn't happen as much in America, it does happen, and that's another long conversation for another time. But people need to be able to die with dignity, and some things don't have to be done at all costs, and it's a very difficult thing for him to do. And I think it's great that he went there and shared that, and I would be really interested in a similar book of somebody going down there now, so maybe I can look for it. But that's the neglected and abused in Haiti.